A single sting from this creature is, chemically, almost identical to a sting from the honeybee living quietly in a hobbyist's backyard hive a few miles away. The venom isn't more potent. It isn't more toxic. The danger isn't in the chemistry at all. The danger is in the number. And in documented cases, victims have been stung not once, not a dozen times, but hundreds of times in a single sustained attack, pursued across yards, down streets, sometimes into water, by a swarm that simply does not stop. This is the Africanized honeybee, a hybrid bee descended from African honeybee subspecies interbred with European honeybees, now established across the southern United States, including Texas, Arizona, California, and parts of the Gulf Coast. It looks essentially identical to the common honeybee most Americans grew up seeing in gardens. There's no visual warning sign. The danger isn't in its appearance. It's in how it behaves when its colony feels threatened. What makes this bee dangerous isn't its venom at the molecular level, which is, in essence, the same compound found in ordinary honeybee stings, a mixture containing a toxin called melittin, which breaks open cell membranes at the sting site, along with enzymes that trigger intense local pain and inflammation by irritating nerve endings directly. In small doses, from 1 or 2 stings, this venom causes exactly what most people expect: a sharp, burning pain, localized swelling, and redness that fades within hours or a day. None of that, on its own, makes this bee remarkable. What makes it remarkable and genuinely dangerous is defensive behavior, hardwired over generations in the African subspecies it descends from, where colonies evolved under far more intense pressure from predators, including large mammals raiding hives for honey. That evolutionary pressure produced bees that respond to a perceived threat faster, in far greater numbers, and for a longer duration than the more docile European honeybee most people are familiar with. A European honeybee colony might send out a small number of defenders in response to a disturbance near the hive. An Africanized honeybee colony can mobilize the majority of its workforce within seconds, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of bees responding to a single disturbance. And unlike many insects that lose interest once a threat retreats a short distance, these bees are documented pursuing a perceived threat for several hundred yards, sometimes continuing the chase for minutes at a time. This is a numbers problem. Not a chemistry problem, but a numbers problem with this particular insect is exactly what turns survivable into life-threatening. Each individual honeybee, Africanized or not, can only sting once, since its barbed stinger embeds in skin and tears away from the bee's body as it pulls back. A mechanism that ultimately kills that individual bee, but leaves the stinger and its attached venom sac still pumping toxin into the skin. When that happens, hundreds of times within a few minutes, the venom dose entering the body isn't comparable to one sting anymore. It's a cumulative chemical load that can overwhelm systems no single sting ever would. The first sting registers as expected, a sharp, immediate burning sensation, but in a real Africanized honeybee attack, there's rarely just one. Within seconds, the air around the person fills with bees, and stings begin landing across exposed skin in rapid succession, on arms, the scalp, the neck, anywhere uncovered. Each sting brings that same burning jolt, but now they're compounding faster than the body can process them individually, the sensations blurring into a continuous, overwhelming wave of pain rather than discrete points of contact. Within the first 1 to 2 minutes, as sting counts climb into the dozens, the venom's individual components begin acting cumulatively. The melittin component, which ruptures cell membranes, starts causing widespread tissue irritation across every sting site simultaneously, while another component, a compound called phospholipase A2, amplifies the inflammatory response, increasing swelling and pain at each location far beyond what a single sting would produce. The body's histamine response, the same chemical reaction responsible for itching, swelling, and redness in any allergic style reaction, activates everywhere at once, rather than around one isolated point. As the attack continues, often documented as lasting anywhere from several seconds to, in severe cases, ongoing pursuit across hundreds of yards, sting counts can climb into the hundreds. At that volume, melittin's cell membrane destroying effect, multiplied across the entire body, can begin causing more than localized pain. Documented severe cases involve a toxic reaction even without any underlying allergy, including widespread swelling, vomiting, dizziness, and in the most extreme circumstances, breakdown of red blood cells and muscle tissue severe enough to put strain on the kidneys as they attempt to filter the resulting waste products from the bloodstream, a condition with parallels to massive crush injuries. Separately, and just as seriously, anyone with an actual bee venom allergy faces the same risk as with a single sting, anaphylaxis, except now triggered by a venom load potentially hundreds of times larger, making the allergic response come on faster and more severely. Picture someone mowing a lawn or trimming branches near an old shed, vibrations and noise disturbing a colony that's quietly established itself inside a wall cavity or hollow tree without anyone noticing. Within moments, the air fills with bees, and what began as a routine afternoon chore turns into a desperate sprint toward the nearest shelter, swatting and running while stings land continuously across exposed skin, the swarm following persistently rather than dispersing, some bees pursuing for 100 yards or more before finally giving up the chase. The standard advice during an actual attack is counterintuitive but critical. Run in a straight line toward shelter, ideally an enclosed building or vehicle, rather than swatting at the bees, since swatting can trigger even more aggressive stinging. Once safe, embedded stingers should be scraped out rather than pinched to avoid squeezing more venom from the attached sac. Anyone stung more than a handful of times, or showing any sign of an allergic reaction, needs emergency medical attention immediately, since high sting counts alone can require hospital treatment regardless of allergy status. What's coming up is the detail that explains exactly how a hybrid bee created by careful, well-intentioned science ended up becoming one of the most feared insects in the Americas. Here's the detail most people don't know. The Africanized honey bee exists because of a breeding program intended to improve honey production, not because of any accident involving an escaped pest. In the 1950s, researchers crossbred African honeybee subspecies with European honeybees, specifically hoping to create a hybrid better suited to tropical climates, more productive, and more resilient. Some of these bees escaped captivity, and their highly defensive genetic traits proved so successful at outcompeting and absorbing local honeybee populations that, within a few decades, the hybrid had spread across South America, through Central America, and into the southern United States entirely on its own, a permanent, self-sustaining wild population now woven into the ecosystem of an entire hemisphere. The Africanized honeybee isn't dangerous because nature built a deadlier weapon. It's dangerous because nature, with a small amount of human interference, built a more committed defender, one willing to mobilize an entire colony's force against any threat, real or perceived, that gets too close. And somewhere else in this country, another creature is waiting, one whose danger comes from a method of attack entirely unlike anything in this episode. What you just learned took years of research to uncover, but it can take you 10 seconds to make sure you never miss the next one. Subscribe now, because the next thing hiding in plain sight might be more dangerous than this one, and you deserve to know before it finds you.